Good afternoon, Avacal. This is Sir Fergus. Welcome to panel number 1 on our series for Ask the Knights. A few weeks ago, actually, we put up a request for your questions. We realized that we had a problem in this kingdom when it came to communication. We made the commitment as a council that we wanted to be better. We wanted to hear your problems. We wanted to be more active with some people who felt uncomfortable to come up to talk to us. We asked for questions, and boy, did you submit questions. We ended up with enough that we actually have to do 2 panels. So today we are covering panel number 1. Unfortunately, the Sir Olaf was unable to make it. We planned on 4 knights. We are now down to 3. The other knights have stepped in, but you will notice that not all the knights will answer all the questions. We are going to try our best to make this as compact as possible so it is digestible, but we did not have time for all the knights to answer. What we did do, however, is we took your questions back to the council. They were read by every member of the chivalry. A lot of the members of the chivalry got a chance to answer and talk to the panelists. So when we present our answers, know that this was all came from the chivalry. We'll give our personal points of view, but we were advised by the entire council. We could only show you 4 knights today, but you have the answers from all of them in this. We are going to answer roughly half your questions on this panel. Roughly the other half are in the next panel. If you do notice that your question is not exactly worded on here as you presented it, that's because some of the questions were almost identical and we had to combine them so that you did not just get the same answer over and over again. So before you worry that we did not hear you or we did not answer, I would ask that you listen to the answers to the questions and wonder if your question was answered already and whether or not you got your answer. If you did not, and there is a problem, please contact me and we will see what we can do to rectify it. I may not be able to run another panel. We may run ones in the future, but I promise you I will bring that question back to the chivalry so that you will know that we at least considered it. Also, these panelists have given their time. A lot of the questions that you have put, society in general doesn't have an answer for. When I say society, I don't just mean the SCA. I mean Canada does not have an answer for. We are struggling with some of these questions. We are going to do our very, very, very best. Be kind to the panelists. Understand they are trying. If you do not like the answers you have been given or you feel they are incomplete, feel free to contact the knights, your local knight, or myself if you do not feel comfortable contacting knight, to perhaps give us a different point of view or perhaps give us what you thought we could have answered differently. We're always willing to learn. We're always happy to learn, but know that we are doing our best. And this is new for us. It is new for you. It is new for everybody. And the first time you try something, it will not be perfect. Which leads me to something else. I've never moderated a Zoom meeting before. If you are expecting a spectacularly edited masterpiece that is going to be put up for some sort of award, you're going to the wrong place. Now, I would like to introduce our panelists. We will start with Sir Hrogn. Sir
Hi,
Hrogn.
everybody. I'm Hrogn. I live in Murgawood. Started in the SCA in 1999. I lived in a variety of small towns in Saskatchewan for the first 9 years in the game. I do understand what it is like to play in the SCA from a real setting and without regular access to a group. I was knighted in 2017. Over the course of the years, I've been the Knight Marshal of Murgawood a few times, been Earl Marshal of Avacal once when we were still Principality, been Baronial Champion a few times here, even achieved the rank of Bowman shooting royal rounds. And I'm a member of the household of Odin's Bastards. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a good opportunity for us to talk with the public, and hopefully it creates a few talking points that we can go forward and have increased dialogue with everybody.
All right, next will be Sir Kiera.
Good day. My name is Sir Kiera. So I started playing actually in 2003 and then friddled around for a little bit. And eventually, once I started to get fighting, I actually ended up knighted in 2018. There we go. I have actually, throughout my career, I've been Montguard heavy champion. I was Knight Marshal for an extended period of time, have ruled as Queen and as Princess, and now am your Kingdom Royal Marshal.
Thank you. Next, we have Sir Eric.
Hi, I'm Sir Erik Rugensson. I started playing in 91 in Mergen Wood. At some point in my career, I took a break, then moved to Borealis, and I was knighted in 2014. I've held various positions in both baronies and the principality. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess I should introduce myself. I am Sir Fergus. I have been in the SA for about 10 years in Borealis. I am the Youth Armored Combat Marshal. I was knighted in 2016. So I've been playing for about 10 years. I've been knighted for 4, and I will be your moderator today. And on that note, we are going to get right into our first question. The first question is, what does it mean to be a knight, and is there a code of chivalry? We will start that question with Sir Hrogn.
It means that I've been recognized by the Crown and society as having achieved the requirements of the order. The SCA does actually define the duties of the knight, so I'm going to run through that, and then I'm going to give my personal take on it, and I'm sure my other panelists will give their personals. SCA defines it as set an example of courtesy and chivalric conduct on and off the field of honor, to respect the crown of the kingdom, support and uphold the laws of the kingdom and corpora, to enrich the kingdom by sharing his or her knowledge or skills, to support and uphold the crown of the kingdom, to enhance the renown and defend the honor of the peer's lady or lord, to advise the crown on the advancement of candidates for chivalry, to bestow the accolade of knighthood upon a candidate for the order of knighthood by the sole right as both sovereign and knight, or acting directly for the sovereign who is not a knight. Now, a personal take on it here is that idealistically, it means that we're the people who represent the newest of new people's ideals when they first join the SCA. Nobody grows up reading stories about the Grant level fighter who slayed the dragon and saved the kingdom. It's always the knight. We're supposed to be the representation of childhood ideals. It's a possible bar to meet. I'm not Sir Lancelot, but we're supposed to have fun trying to meet it. As a result of that, a lot of people feel that we failed. And I'm the first to agree that, yeah, we do. How couldn't we? But we're going to get up tomorrow, and we're going to try it again, because we're also a bunch of people who care a lot about the SCA and the people, to the point that we have dedicated a huge amount of our lives to this organization. And we're going to do our best. As far as code of chivalry goes, there's examples. Go read some Musashi, some Geoffrey de Charny, Raymond Lull. Pick the flavor you like the best. There's multiple period sources, and they all have something interesting to add to the concept.
Thank you, Hrogn. Next, we'll go to Sir Kiera.
So Sir Hrogn actually defined, in terms of the SCA knighthood, actually very well. Personally, I tend to swing a little bit more to an older version, which is the Song of Roland. If you get a chance to go look it up. The only tenet I'm not particularly supportive of is one of religion, but that is because me personally is not a very religious individual, and it doesn't have a place in the SCA. That is part of our mandate. What does it mean to be a knight? This is something that needs to permeate both your game aspect and, in my opinion, your real life. You can't separate an individual out of the SCA and in the SCA. And if they show chivalric values, then they should, in my opinion, show those in all aspects of their life.
Thank you, Sir Kiera. Next, we have Sir Eric.
I cannot put it any better than, by definition, than Sir Hrogn has. The other part of this is the code of chivalry. They talk about courage, upholding courage, justice, mercy, generosity, faith, nobility, and hope. One of the best examples of this to me was set forth, and it was sung during my knighting, is the song that I believe was actually made in the SCA called Born on the List Fields. And yeah, what it means to be a knight to me, it was, I was like everybody else. I came into the SCA and then was told I get to do all this fun stuff and there's this goal at the end. And that was something I've always wanted and I could do myself. So it was the self-discovery, the journey to becoming the knight is what it means to be a knight. So.
Thank you, Sir Eric. All right, on to our next question. What powers do the knights have or not have to punish or censor people who violate the rules of the SCA? First question, that will go to Sir Hrogn first. Sir Hrogn?
Short answer is none. There is nothing in any of the governing documents that allows any of the peerages to punish or censure anybody. The power of the knights rests in our reputations as leaders within the organization and within our social influence. So while punishing and censoring is not the main idea of chivalry, we can positively affect situations and use our leadership abilities to improve the society for all the players. To be recognized as a peer, you have to have demonstrated that you are a citizen of the game. You have a vested interest in the well-being of the club. So you can be assured that we try. We don't always succeed because we're human, but you can be assured that we are doing our best out here to try to improve things where we can.
Thank you, Sir Hrogn. Sir Kiera?
There it is. We don't, in and of itself, have any official powers per se. It should be noted, though, that, and we are all, in fact, actually subject to mundane law. It doesn't matter whether you are a king or you have just newly joined the game. First and foremost, the society operates under that particular auspice. Now, within the game itself, we do, I would say, have a, I don't want to use the word obligation, but certainly we have a duty and we have a certain amount of social authority, I guess, to be able to help somebody who views us as influential. So in that respect, this is something that every knight, myself and all of my brothers take hopefully to heart, is that if somebody approaches you, that you can take that influence that you have earned over time and apply it to good things. That said, though, of course, while we can do our very best within our respective talents, we aren't the police officially. So again, we don't actually have any official powers to do anything, but we will absolutely help you to the best of our ability and point you in the right direction if this is something that is clearly beyond our social capacity to deal with.
Thank you. On to our next question. What is the process in the Avacal chivalry when the Knights Council receives a report of unchivalric behavior of one of their members? Is there an existing process for that, or is that something that is always the sole responsibility of the Seneschal's office or the Crown's? This does not refer to severe instances regarding mundane law. Sir Kiera.
So I'm hoping in the incidents, of course, the whole goal of this is communication. And ideally, in a situation, if something occurs between two people, regardless of their rank, that the first step ideally is dialogue. You indicate to the person that there's been a problem. Hopefully you can hash it out. Now, I respect absolutely that for various reasons. That's not something that's maybe possible. People don't feel comfortable with. They don't want to take that road. And that's absolutely acceptable. In that particular instance, bring it either to another member of the order if that person makes you feel uncomfortable. And if there truly is, if the incident is something that isn't easily resolved, there is in fact a grievance process that Avacal does have in place. So if this is something that can't be resolved between the individuals at the time, then the next step at that point would in fact be to step towards the Seneschalate.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, Sir Olaf did have to drop out, so some of these questions will only be answered by one knight. So on to the next question. There was a discussion on how candidates should be on par martially with the majority of the order, but when you consider skill continues to improve, even after elevation, does this create an ever-increasing bar for the expectation of prowess? Sir Hrogn, you're the first one on that.
Yes. We consider the candidate where they are martially at all times when discussing them, but rarely is it in a vacuum. There's a larger picture at play. 20 years ago, you couldn't just jump on YouTube and have access to a bunch of high quality fight videos from the best fighters in the world. It was a big deal when a fighter from a neighboring group came to your practice, because maybe they teach you something, anything. So comparing the modern world to 20 years ago is not particularly relevant. We do have an obligation to make sure that a candidate meets the bar society-wide regarding prowess, and that's why travel is important. It's incredibly large disservice to put a white belt on somebody and then send them to Interkingdom War, like say Australia, for example, before they're ready. White belt screams, light me up, to every squire out there. If you can't defend yourself, then you are all of a sudden not enjoying your kingdom travel anymore. And that's not fair to the candidate. And besides, we have to do a good job representing Avacal when we travel and not just managing to defend ourselves. The overall big picture of where the candidate stands is more important than whether they are on par with people who were knighted a long time ago here.
Thank you, Sir Hrogn. Sir Kiera?
So as Sir Hrogn said, absolutely. There is, I would say, a collective bar that everybody looks towards, but expects that there will be some improvement. Any fighter who thinks that once they get knighted, the journey stops is kidding themselves, frankly. There's always something that you can improve. To that extent, there is definitely going to be a spectrum. My version of what somebody considers, or what I consider an acceptable bar, is certainly going to be different from what some of our other members have to say. So ultimately it rests with the Crown, who is going to take that spectrum of opinions, which once a candidate is getting close should be fairly in line with each other. And then it ultimately rests with the Crown, hopefully with the support of the council for this said candidate. So I guess to say it's an average perception across the council, and the Crown chooses to act upon that as they see fit. I would say now, though, of course, gone are the days where a stick jock is going to get knighted. The aspect of the bar that has changed for us has been looking at the greater whole, I would say. It's very important that our knights engage in the society, primarily in the Marshallate, because that's what we focus on, but also in other aspects, and that could touch on perhaps service, maybe other things that they do of interest, essentially how they interact with the kingdom as a whole. So the bar has changed perhaps, but only to include some soft skills that maybe wasn't something that was looked at in the past.
Thank you, Sir Kiera. Next, we have a question. What measures does the Knight Council consider when needing to correct a candidate, man-at-arms, or squire? And this one is for Sir Eric.
Thank you. So this is a tough one because the term measure is, the first thing the council does is if it identifies a problem. Now, this is hard because most of these people are in fealty to a knight, so the problem should have already been dealt with between the knight and the people that are there in fealty to. If it's brought to the council or the person doesn't have a knight, then usually everything starts with open communication. And you communicate with the person about the problem and the solutions, and you get to watch them. Now, the actual measures themselves is all dependent on the issue itself. It could be something as simple as you must go apologize to this person, and here's why. And I need you to think about this too. If it's something so egregious, I need you, and it's a squire, I'm taking my belt back. There's a wide range. There's no one set measure and scale we use for anything like this. But I think the biggest thing that you're going to see in all of this is communication, because communication is key to any relationship. And what you have with it, and when you're in fealty with somebody, what you have is a relationship.
Thank you, Sir Eric. The next question is, I am interested to hear the stance of the Knights Collective on how they'll be vetting potential future knights who would be representing the SA and the Order. And as a follow-up, however, I'm also interested in hearing the stance of knights, individuals, on their vetting process for the future man-at-arms of squires. Is it the same standard, higher, lower, or when you're considering somebody who will represent you and your family going forward, whether or not their path will lead eventually to knighthood? For example, does someone get more of a pass, higher tolerance because they are still learning, and vetting only intensifies when the belt may be changing color? Or do you have stricter standards for somebody who you would choose personally or publicly to vouch for? We are going to start with Sir Hrogn.
His job is counsel of the Crown regarding the candidates. The Crown holds the ultimate decision. The candidate and the Crown that advances them will forever be tied together in reputation, and we feel that weight. Nobody wants to knight a person and then have them turn out to be a bad apple. So we get together and we do our very best to thoroughly discuss all the candidates before they're offered, and then we try to head off any problems before they ever happen. Regarding the Squire, man-at-arms, it's a very similar process, but on a smaller scale. Before I took mine, I talked to some other knights that I'm close to and got some feedback. It's ultimately my decision, regardless of what the council, but the opinions are free, and why wouldn't I talk to people I trust? I'm super happy with my Squire and man-at-arms, so it's working out for me so far. However, it doesn't always go well, and sometimes things change. If a situation develops where there's a problem with the Squire, or for me anyways, I can't just dump them. It's a real relationship, and they aren't just disposable. A knight would be working with the Squire at that point and providing help in any way they can to help a person out. This could play out over a period of time, and redemption is a real concept. However, if for all your best efforts and attention, if it wasn't going to work out, there could come a time where ties need to be cut, and that would be a very difficult conversation.
Thank you, Sir Hrogn. Next, we're going to go to Sir Kiera.
This question's a little bit difficult for me because I don't actually have any Squires and I don't have any men-at-arms. I am currently trying to define myself exactly what it is that I'm looking for. Any individual who is going to join my family is in fact joining my family. And I also have to take Sir Elias into account as well, because he is my husband essentially. And that also plays a factor. So at this particular juncture, I'm still looking, and given certain circumstances, given the way that the world is essentially gone right now, I look for how an individual is going to be both in the SCA, but I'll be honest, I'm actually interested in how that person acts outside of the SCA, and things like that also includes your social media. So if you're an individual who is absolutely wonderful in the game, but I found out that there are things that are questionable that don't match up with my own personal moral code, then I'll be honest, that's an individual that I would very likely step away from. And as Sir Hrogn indicated, you would ask the opinions of your fellows, be they knights, be they any other person, frankly. A squire, a new person, somebody from another order, every opinion is valid when you're looking at vetting an individual. Personally, if you're taking to men-at-arms and squire, and more so even in my opinion, if that person is nearing a belt change and is about to be elevated. It's important to know that everybody's opinion matters in that aspect. Ours, the kings, the queens, and every person who has ever set foot in the SCA. Within our kingdom, who knows that person? Sorry, to be relevant. All right.
Thank you, Sir Kiera. Sir Eric?
I cannot add to what Sir Hrogn said about how we vet someone who is about to be knighted and the process it goes through. He did that wonderfully. I guess I'll talk to then my aspect of taking a squire or a man-at-arms. And like everyone has said here, it is a relationship, and I need to know that I can communicate, talk, and be able to be a member of my household, and to fit in with me. And some of that is, if they never do become a knight but want to go down this path, I'm there with them to help them. If they don't want to become a knight, then we'll talk about being a man-at-arms or something like that. The idea is I'm there to help guide them, but I have to be able to guide them, so that I have to know they're like-minded to me in some aspects. Not all, but some. And that's usually a process for me that takes 6 months to a year of an informal relationship moving forward. To basically both get to know each other. And before I ever put a belt on somebody, I give my expectations to them, and I ask them, can you handle this? And if they say, I don't think I can do that, then that's the end of our relationship in that form. And maybe I'll help them find somebody that's better suited to them, one of the other knights. Because that's also my job as a knight, is to find, if this person really wants to go down this path, find somebody that can help them down this path. Because it may not be me. So.
Thank you, Sir Eric. The next question we have is, what does sexism and misogyny look like? That one will be answered by Sir Kiera.
This is a difficult question, both personally and I know across the society. I have to take into account that I've been very lucky in Avacal, and that I've experienced generally very little. But I have to acknowledge that a lot of people out there, either here and honestly in the greater SCA, have in fact experienced essentially being put down, being dismissed, being talked down to, and in some ways oddly coddled, just because you're a woman. To be fair, sexism can in fact go both ways. There are old expectations for what the role of a man is and what the role of a woman is. Those times are changing now. And to be perfectly honest, it's a lot better now than it used to be. If you ever get a chance, I know that the Ladies of Chivalry did put together a round table, and one of the series, one aspect of that was discussing the history. And now we're not dealing with a time that is a struggle for a woman to get into armor. There is help out there. There is encouragement, at least uniformly in Avacal for that. That said, if you ever feel that you've experienced sexism or misogyny in any way, shape, or form, please come talk to us. And if it's not us, please find another voice. It is our obligation, in my opinion, to help people through that. And if there is an issue, to genuinely meet it head on. So to that extent, please talk to us and know that there is in fact support out there for any individual, and that this game is endeavoring to make itself better. And there is evidence to show that that is in fact the case. We have a very strong community of mixed gender in this kingdom, and I want to see that grow.
Thank you, Sir Kiera. The next question we have is, going forward, how do the knights plan on policing themselves when it comes to things like bullying and sexual harassment? This one will be for Sir Hrogn.
I don't think we can have a two-tiered system where the populace has grievance procedure and bullying policy and the knights have policing themselves. That's not a sustainable or healthy system, and I don't think we have any intent to try to implement that idea. Regarding bullying and sexual harassment issues, with any member of Avacal, people must use the SCA systems that are put in place for managing this. That extends to the knights and the other peers as well. The awareness around these to honestly and actively help and improve the game. We are committed to helping anybody work through the SCA procedures. We are here to support the populace, and any issues with my members in our own order, other peerages, or the populace in general. We need to work through these processes and use them in good faith.
Thank you, Sir Hrogn. There it is. Next question we have is, how should individuals process their fear of reprisal when it comes to bringing up grievances against a knight or a squire? And this one will be taken by Sir Eric.
The only way I can put this is there is nothing I can say or do to have you process your fear. It's your fear. There's nothing I can say or do to all that. All I can say is we are human beings. We are approachable. We love this game just as much as everyone else. There is policies in place to help you, and there's people. If you don't feel you can approach the person by yourself, come with a friend or a neutral third party that can intervene. It could be another peer. Could be another knight. Could be anybody else. And there is the policies in the SCA to help with this. We are just human beings. And we're not here to wreck anybody's fun, and we're not here to hurt anybody. And you come talk to us. Let's have conversations.
Thank you, Sir Eric. The next question we have is, how does the order define honor, chivalry, etc.? Can it really be considered being in the true spirit of such virtuous behaviors if, for instance, these codes are adhered to within a society but knowingly disregarded in the greater society? Example, situation, conditional honor disregarded in day-to-day life, aka being nice at the events and a total D-bag at home. And D-bag is PG-13, which is our rating that we're giving this video. The first person to answer this will be Sir Hrogn.
There are a variety of period sources that attempt to define chivalry, and often those authors adjusted chivalric virtue according to the state of affairs in the country that we're in at the time. For example, if a country was at war, virtues may have shifted more towards the prowess spectrum than during the peace times. As a generally acceptable list, chivalric virtues are generally defined as courage, justice, mercy, generosity, faith, nobility, and hope. I personally believe that a person is who they are inside and outside of the game, and I don't distinguish a difference. If a person is a total D-bag at home, but a model of chivalry within the game, that person is absolutely on my awareness list because they sound super dangerous to me. I don't offer a free pass just because a person is always at events if I question their off-site activities.
Thank you, Sir Hrogn. Next will be Sir Eric.
One of the big ones, like Sir Hrogn said, is defining chivalry is courage, justice, mercy, generosity, faith, nobility, and hope. And the fact is, these are most of the people I know and want to be with the SCA have this outside of the SCA as well as inside the SCA. I don't know, especially in today's world, if you can hide who you are outside of the SCA from the SCA. Who you are bleeds through. I'm not playing a character here. I'm playing myself. I am who I am. And in that regard, it's how I'm going to treat the person in the end when things come down. When things come down, it's how I'm going to treat somebody is based on how their actions play out.
Thank you, Sir Eric. All right. Sorry, technical difficulties. Next question is, how do you support women and men who are the survivors of a sexual assault and domestic violence within the populace? These are the most vulnerable people, and we have the power to help them take their voices back. How can we support them and make them feel safe, especially when their abuser may be part of our kingdom? The first one to answer this will be Sir Kiera. Sir Kiera.
This one is going to be a work in progress, I think, for all of us. It's a very difficult topic to touch on, both if you're the individual in that case and if you're an individual who doesn't necessarily know about it. So first thing is communication and essentially education from our point of view. The Knights could use the social authority that we have within this society to help support people, to offer assistance when assistance is requested. I certainly don't ever want to presume or assume with any individual if they've experienced a situation that they necessarily want my help. But I would love to put forward that if you feel that you can trust me and would trust my assistance, or if not me, then those of my my fellow chivalry, please do help educate us on the best ways to address this topic with you, how to make you feel more comfortable. What I think may help you may in fact be detrimental. And this is a process of education that I hope can go both ways. So my first statement would be start with communication. And if there is an incident, perhaps that occurs in the future, that we can absolutely help you pursue the right channels if possible, again, if you feel comfortable in that regard.
Thank you, Sir Kiera. Next will be Sir Eric.
I have the, I guess, advantage. I asked, when this question came up, I asked some people outside the SCA that I have access to. And one of the things that came back to me, and one of the things I'm going to try in all my SCA life is, around this is making the space around me as safe as I possibly can for everyone. And that's what I can do to give them the safe space. So when they need what they need, they feel safe enough to talk to me and ask me, and we can go from there. And that's what I can do. And that's what all of us can do, is make the spaces around us as safe as we can.
Thank you, Sir Eric. Next, we have, does the council plan to have some sort of community activity reach out to non-fighters to show leadership and break down the barriers between the fighting arts and the non-fighting arts? This question will go to Sir Hrogn.
Absolutely, we do. This panel today is exactly an example of that question that's being asked. We are reaching out to the populace in general and answering every question that's been submitted to us to lead and to break down those barriers. As far as between fighting and non-fighting interests, I'm going to reference some things that we do here in Murgawood, as I think we're getting this right. We have our meetings for A&S and Fight Practice weekly at the same facility every time. It brings everybody together every week when there isn't a pandemic going on. And it wasn't unusual to have fighters wander over to the A&S tables to see what they're doing and to have the A&Sers come visit the fighters. We blend pretty well. Astrid and I also held weekly project nights at our house for a couple of years. The projects weren't restricted to armoring, although that was offered. We had people embroidering in our shop. We had fighters sewing clothes in the house. We had rapier, heavy fighters, A&Sers all around the same table. And as much as we called it project nights, projects wasn't the important part. The important part is socialization and making friends across disciplines. We've had a tremendous influx of new people in the last couple of years here. And if you watch them, they are integrated across interests. They are friends first who happen to be interested in a variety of different things in the SCA. Once we weren't able to continue holding project nights, Baron and Baroness, Roll and Roxanne picked up and hosted now. They kept going with the same concept and drew in people from all the different interests in the barony before the pandemic started. The integration across interest is super important for group dynamics. There's really no reason why we have to segregate ourselves based on our interests. We actually can all get along. We all are in the same club.
Thank you, Sir Hrogn. The next question we have is, why is it more difficult for women to get knighted? And this one will be taken by Sir Kiera.
I have to be very clear here. I'm going to speak more for Avacal and not for the SCA at large. So understand this question is a little bit more complicated if you're looking across the society. But the truth of the matter is that it is not typically more difficult for a woman to get knighted over a man. So to that extent, again, I will reference, if you do get a chance, please go check out the series that the Lady Chivalry put together. It's 6 episodes. And we do actually delve specifically into this, both with a trend in women uptaking fighting as a whole across the society and the resulting numbers of knights that have actually come up. Specifically in the last 10 years, we've noticed a significant jump. So if you're particularly interested in what those numbers are, I would suggest that you go check out episode number 5, right around the middle, around the 24-minute mark, if you don't want to listen to the whole thing. That I respect. But I can confidently say, at least in Avacal, that me being a woman is incidental to me having been knighted. And any discussion that happens within the council or among any individual, anybody, frankly, with regards to a fighter, what their gender is, how they view themselves, is absolutely incidental to what their prowess is on the field, how they comport themselves, how they treat other people. These are the factors that matter when you're being knighted, not the bits.
Thank you, Sir Kiera. The next question we have is, if you could go back and change one thing in your past as a knight, what would it be? And the first one to answer that will be Sir Kiera.
Again, I have to apologize because I haven't been a knight particularly long, so my influence is perhaps a little less. If there was, oddly enough, one thing that I really wish that I could go back and maybe explain a little bit more or revisit a bit more, was my buffet, of all things. This was something that I asked for, that I very much wanted, that was absolutely integral to me becoming a knight. Not because it was a way of joining the old boys club. That's not it. A buffet is the last blow you receive unanswered. And to me, that is something that I took to heart, that I now have the right and the ability to stand up, not only for myself, but for those around me. And I understand, excuse me, the toll that this took on Sir Hrogn to be able to do this. he had to reach in and break some extremely difficult social norms of our society as a whole to be able to deliver that blow. And I deeply, deeply respect him for that. So I hope that anybody who sees it and perhaps sees another woman be knighted and receive the buffet, it's something that is consented upon by both parties, and it's something that has an extreme amount of personal meaning for everybody involved. So if I could do one thing, I'd like to explain that a little bit better.
Thank you, Sir Kiera. Next, we have Sir Eric.
I'd like to say for this, to go back and change something, I wouldn't change anything in my entire SCA career, because I am a product of my successes and my mistakes. And I have hopefully learned from my mistakes, and that makes me who I am today. So I wouldn't want to change anything, because I enjoy me. And I hopefully enjoy the person I am in the SCA. And if people do have a problem with something I've done in the past, they can always come and talk to me.
Thank you, Sir Eric. The next question we have, does the Society Marshal give guidance across all kingdoms and chivalry councils? How does this affect statements and direction of the Kingdom of Avacal's council? And for this, we have our King Earl Marshal, Sir Kiera.
There you go. So I'm going to put my Earl Marshal hat on for a second here. The Society Marshal has no interaction with the councils, be it chivalry or any of the other orders here or in any kingdom whatsoever. The purpose of the Society Marshal, and therefore also my role, is only to deal with the rules, how they are enacted, and the safety associated with them. That's it. That's the only involvement that the Society Marshal has with the kingdoms. And if there's an issue on that front, then absolutely they intervene. But on all other aspects, they have no say whatsoever.
Thank you, Sir Kiera. The next question we have is, what does consent look like? And this one will be answered first by Sir Hrogn.
I'm pretty sure this question is asked in reference to sexual relations, so we're just going to cut to the chase and dive right into there. First thing involved here is the ability to consent. If a person is underage, drunk, or being forced in some way, they simply don't have the ability to consent. This is a non-starter before it gets going. It's impossible to develop consent in that situation. Next, we have communication. People should just talk, be clear. Consent can only be provided if everybody's aware of what we're consenting to. Once consent is established, it can also be revoked during sex. Any party is more than welcome to stop at any time or ask to slow down. It comes back to communication. And everything works better if everybody's on the same page. If somebody wants to stop midway through, that is just okay, and it just stops. Next thing is that consent is both verbal and nonverbal. If the words are all yes and the actions are all no, then it's incumbent on the parties to understand that there's more going on here than enthusiastic consent. If your partner seems to be uncomfortable with what's happening, stop, even if the words are yes. And finally, consent isn't assumed because of history. For example, if you got together with the person at the last event, it doesn't mean that everything's good to go at this event. The consent process starts all over each time, and yes, that last week, no, this week is perfectly okay.
Thank you, Sir Hrogn. Next person to answer this will be Sir Kiera.
I'll be perfectly honest, Sir Hrogn has absolutely covered all of the bases on that particular aspect. For sure, I can tell you what lack of consent feels like. And if there's ever an incident where you've been groped inappropriately, unexpectedly, if somebody has come up and said something inappropriate to you, presumed, all of these things fall under the aspects of consent. And it behooves each and every one of us to govern ourselves. And in the instance, if perhaps somebody is being questionable, to keep the ears and the eyes open for things around you. That said, we have to be very careful where we presume. So I would ask that anybody who's involved specifically in their situation, please do try to keep the communication open. It's difficult to go back in time to fix something. Let's try and avoid that.
Thank you, Sir Kiera. We're down to our last question, and I'm going to take this one. Will the letter that the Chivalry of the East sent to the crown based upon a knight's social media comments set a precedence, and how would Avacal react? So for those of you that don't know, what happened was a specific member of the chivalry in the Kingdom of the East made a social media post. In this post, she wished a certain group of people dead. She went on to describe how those people, including the babies, should die. And it was an awful post. The Kingdom of the East chivalry got together with the person. They held a long council online, and then they submitted a request to the crown for that this person be banished. This person was given the opportunity to sign onto that letter and that request, and then she was also given the opportunity to put up a public apology with her behavior, submitting herself to the punishment of the crown, and hoping that one day she is able to redeem herself. So that's what happened. What is our take on it, or specifically my take on it, if it had happened in Avacal? I do not think we would be as measured. I do not think we would give them the chances that the Kingdom of the East did. I do not know this person. I don't know their story. I don't know who they are. I don't know anything about them. I don't know if this was out of character. The Knights of the East do know. So I'm not going to tell them they did it wrong. I'm not going to tell them they did it right. Should the crown choose to forgive this person, then I also won't judge. It's a cruel, hard world. If there is forgiveness out there, I'll never make fun of it. I will never mock it. I will never question it. But as for Avacal, should one of my brothers or my sister make a post like that, I do not think that I would give them the opportunity to sit and explain it to me separately. I do not think that I would give them the opportunity to sign onto a letter that I would send to crown. I do believe the Knights of the East were very measured, very careful, and maybe they know this individual, and that's why they were careful with it. But I do not feel constrained or tied to this in any way as an Avacalian knight. I don't think a precedence was set. I think Avacal would be a little harsher in all of this. So hopefully that answers your question. I cannot speak to what the outcome will be. It is outside of our kingdom. In our kingdom, hopefully we never, ever, ever have to see it. And that is the last question. We are done. Thank you for all of you who sat through this with us. Thank you for our panelists. These were not easy questions. Hopefully we answered them enough to give you insight to the fact that we are thinking about them. I do know some people put these questions out merely to get us to think about some of these issues, and we have been. If I have visited with you or talked to you in the last week or so, and you've given me suggestions and comments to bring back to the Knights Council, I will be bringing back comments and suggestions separately. They will not be addressed individually in these videos. These videos are only for questions. If you asked a question and it is not answered here, please tune in for series number 2, which will be happening on Monday. Yes, Monday. So thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the people who sent the questions. And have a wonderful evening, Avacal. We'll see you tomorrow.